Think back on the last great day you've had. Think back on the last bad day you've had. Can you also think about some of the decent, good day you've had in between? So, in our creative journey, we are guaranteed to have ups and downs. Good days, bad days. But I think for me, I have struggled with that myself. I had issues trying to grapple with that. I've had some good days, and then I'd be good for a while and then be surprised when I have a few bad days. And not just like life bad days, but like in my creative journey specifically. I think I'm on the right path. I think I'm going in the direction that I'm going. Like, why am I still struggling on some of these days? Why is that still an issue for me? So I decided to run an experiment, a 30-day experiment to better quantify why I might be feeling this particular way about my journey. This 30-day experiment revealed a lot about where my mindset was. In this video, not only will I be sharing all the insights I gained from this experiment itself, but I'll share a drastic change that had occurred in my life that essentially made me want to do the experiment all over again, but with a different mindset. I'm Josh the Creative, and this channel is focused on sharing my experience as a filmmaker, an entrepreneur, and overall creative. Failures, mistakes, and lessons learned, all laid out before you. So let's get started. So what I want to do is dive into my actual journal entry and look in the nuts and bolts of what this 30-day process was like for me. So this is my daily confidence level for the month. And essentially, I base my days off of the criteria of if I was triumphant, if I was confident, if it was more like a mid kind of day, if I was not confident or felt defeated. There were some other measurements that I looked at, like if I was productive, if I was focused or rested. I don't think that really played into the results that I had each day. But what I did that mattered the most in recognizing what was the issue or what was the problem or solution was journaling my thoughts and looking and seeing each day, what did I do, what took place for me to feel accomplished or not. Okay, so we're going to look at the triumphant level first. Okay, so I felt my best when I succeeded in a goal, I ordered my day, or walked with authority. And then looking at some of these elements as I had categorized each day based on the level of confidence that I had. These are all my triumphant days. And I would say the word that kind of sums up how I felt, or at least what made me feel triumphant, would be success. All right, so now we're looking at the confident level. For the most part, I had pretty good days when I was moving the needle forward, whether I was trying to get work, whether I was being productive at home, or just being productive at my job. So a lot of these confident days had to do with me making some kind of progress, getting something done. Whenever I talk about moving the needle forward, that means pushing towards that goal that I have, getting a little further ahead. So I think that the word that kind of sums up this entire section would be progress. Okay, next would be my mid days. Not so great days. I would say for these days, I wasn't doing what I set out to do, even when I knew I needed to do them. I didn't make time for what was important, and essentially that needle did not move forward. So where I was making progress on some days, there were days where I just felt stagnant, and that is the word that kind of sums this up. As we get worse and worse, now we're looking at not confident days. For the one day that I had, I would say that just feeling restricted due to financial concerns. This is kind of an ongoing issue, and really just kind of put it very simply, the word of the category would be worry. I was focusing on my circumstances. All right, now for defeated, I would say that my worst days were when I did not know what I was doing, I didn't know what I was supposed to do, and I worried about money, and also life hit hard. And yes, you did see that, right? I did get scammed. That's a whole different video, a whole different topic, a whole different conversation. But as far as the measurement that I'm going off of as how productive I've been throughout this month, the word that kind of sums this up is lost. Because I did not know. I would just sit there and not know what I'm supposed to be doing. And it was worse than being stagnant. Because at least when I had my middays, I at least knew what I was supposed to be doing and just chose not to do it. But these are days where I just felt completely like out of sync. I felt lost. So on the triumphant days, my very best days, I had a lot of success. On my confident days, I still made progress. Even though I wasn't finishing a goal, I was still doing things that were being productive and getting me closer to finishing that goal. My middays were when I actually was just stagnant. I didn't really move the needle forward whatsoever. I kind of just stayed where I was, which was not a good feeling. I had worry on my not confident days, and I wasn't completely defeated, but I focused so much on what I was dealing with that it just deterred me entirely. And then my worst days, my defeated days, were when I felt the most lost, when I didn't know where I was supposed to be going or what I was supposed to be doing. Even though I had these things to be doing, these projects and goals and stuff, I just felt so lost and got consumed in my circumstances that I didn't know where to go. I didn't want to just have these chicken scratch notes for you to read. If you can read it, then kudos to you. But I did want to also quantify and put these entries to a number and see like what the ratio really is and how great the month was overall. So in this first month, my triumphant days, I had 5 of those, which is 16% of the month. I had 10 confident days, 33%. My mid days, also 10, 33%. I had 1 not confident day, which was 3% of the month. And my worst days, my defeated days, I had 4 of those, which gave me 13%. So this first month was a little disheartening. It's not necessarily as bad as I thought, but it wasn't great. It's not just the numbers and the percentages that really threw me. It's the mentality and the motivation behind it all. It's what I base my days on, and I think that is the core issue in this entire endeavor. I counted my days good only by the measure of how much work I got done and how productive I was. And if you think about it, that's kind of depressing, because there comes a point where you can only do so much work. There's a point where there isn't anything to do at all. Every project can be finished, and after that, what's next? I would say what drastically changed my mindset and changed my creative journey as a whole was having watched this video from Disciple Mindset, and I actually made a sort of commentary video or like a video response about that a couple months ago by now. But this is essentially what that video had revealed to me about myself. I came to realize that I let the world of like productivity and self-help define how I measure my worth. I let it dictate how I live my days. So when my worth is based on how productive I am, that becomes dangerous. It can lead me to just utter exhaustion. And then at the end of that, I've done things, but was it really as fruitful as I anticipated it being? To put it plainly, I replaced my worth in God with my worth in my work. Once I came to this revelation, I repented. Once I thought about it, I prayed and asked God forgive me. I wanted to be changed and transformed because I realized the way I was working was not sustainable. It was pulling me away from the Lord, and anything that pulls you away from God becomes the new thing that you worship. Even if you don't use the word worship, it's pretty much there. Now, I know that a lot of productivity and self-help books do have a lot of helpful tips, and especially navigating the work that we already have to do. But what I'm having to learn to do is to set boundaries and not make productivity in and of itself a huge part of my identity, but use it as a tool just like I would use any other resource that helps me accomplish what I need to do. So with that being said, once I let go of that particular measurement, the way in which I measure my days, and once I reminded myself of my worth in God, I decided, let's do this whole 30-day experiment all over again and see what happens with this new perspective. Failures, mistakes, and lessons learned all laid out before you. So let's get started. All right, now we're in the second month of me doing this all over again. So now we're looking at my daily confidence levels, but my confidence in God. And some of these side parameters have changed slightly. I still measured if I was being productive, but I changed my focus to if I was being focused on God, and also how my prayer walk and prayer life was, just to see if that played into everything, which I mentioned for the first month. This particular level of measurement, I didn't concern myself as much when it came to analyzing this on the back end. So looking at triumphant, I'll say that my best days were when I was focused on God, despite my circumstances, when I walked in authority, when I had peace, and got a better view of my creative journey. So my focus was shifted. So I would say the word or phrase that kind of best sums up how I view my triumphant days now versus before: Christ-centered. Now looking at my new confident days, I'll say that my good days were when I did not focus on my finances or any of my struggles really. When I instead changed my focus, I studied the word and rested in God's promises. One of these days I wrote "Ain't got no worries," which I think that would sum it up for me, because I just chose on these days not to focus so much on those situations that did not just go away by themselves. So I would say the phrase that really sums this up is shifted focus. All right, now for my middays, I had a couple of middays when I began to focus on my finances, my other struggles, and then life hit hard. And really, I'm just gonna sum all this up into one thing. I didn't have any particular not confident days. It was just a couple of middays and a really awful day. And my worst day was when I had hand, foot, and mouth, and it messed with me and my schedule. So hand, foot, and mouth, my daughter got it, and then I got it. It had me out of work for like 4 days, including just being at home over the weekend. And then even myself, I was suffering because, my hands and feet are just really sore, and everything was just really painful. And so when it came to trying to be okay, that hit so hard. It was something new for me and our family. That was a hard thing to get through for me. So to summarize my mid days and my defeated days with one word, will be circumstances. And really, it was the same circumstance dealing with hand, foot, and mouth that kind of took over, that at least filled into both of those categories of how I felt throughout the days. I had significantly more triumphant days throughout the entire month. I had 16 triumphant days at 53%. I still had 10 confident days at 33%. I only had 3 mid days at 10%. I had 0 non-confident days, and I had 1 defeated day at 3%. So there's a drastic change in the level of confidence I had based on the Lord and His promises and what He can do in my life over what I was capable of doing, and focus more on Him versus my work, which can only get me so far. Based on some of the consistencies and trends, I wanted to note some of the things that mess with or influence my mentality along this journey. First of which being comparing myself to others. When I would watch a certain creator and look at the style in which they shoot, I would think, and it's maybe based on a certain level of insecurity about my own craft, that I should shoot the way that they do because that's what they're doing while they're being successful. And so knowing where my mind is with that, I have to be mindful about how much content I watch for those creators who do inspire me, because even though I'm watching those things under the guise of trying to find inspiration, I think what's really going on is I think it's actually revealing itself to be envy over inspiration. The other thing was focusing on my circumstances. Life be life, and it never really stops. You know, there are things that we come across from season to season that's just pretty much part of living. But I'll get so caught up in seeing the situation as it is right in front of me that I would let it distract me, and I would lose my focus and then start to lose my path, lose where I'm trying to go. I would begin to forget what the goal is and forget what my true potential is within that particular path. So this kind of goes back to the core issue of this entire journey, in that if I shifted my mindset, if I don't focus so much on my circumstances and the way in which it appears, if I don't focus on the limitations around my circumstances, but instead focus on the Lord, because He is infinite and He has no limitations. And I've learned in my current job not to put limits on what the Lord can do in me. So trusting Him, who knows every aspect of my life, who knows where He's taking me, is what I'm relying on to not limit myself based on my circumstances. I am reminding myself that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. It's not based on my own strength, not based on my own power or might, because I am finite and I have all kinds of limits, but the Lord has no limits. So yeah, ain't no limits here. And the last thing is always staying busy. I think that because I would base my days off of the amount of work that I did and the effectiveness in which I did that work, I felt like I always had to be doing something. Like I always have to be moving, have to have something going on every single day based on that old measurement. Now, I've kind of recovered from that, but I'm still learning how to slow down daily. There's a book that I may talk about in a different video, Slow Productivity by Cal Newport, which kind of enunciates this feeling that I have better. But just to put it very plainly, I'm just learning not to be so busy every single day, but kind of spread these projects and these things out so I can breathe a little better. As I'm no longer basing my days off of like how much work I'm doing, I don't have to do as much work to adhere to any quota or criteria that I have. Still working on it though. This experiment does not say that my life is automatically better. Truth be told, my life is great. And not to say that as like a boast, but it goes back to the mindset. My circumstances did not automatically change, but the way in which I viewed my circumstances and viewed the Lord in my circumstances and knowing that I'm okay despite my circumstances, that is the biggest change that I've experienced. Speaking of finances, I had to let go of like the broke mindset, and I'm probably going to explore that more in a different video. So let me know in the comments if that would interest you. I want to continue this habit of shifting my focus on God daily. This would include praying over my work and the projects that I have so that I know that His hand is covering it and that His Spirit is guiding me. So I'm not really basing my effectiveness on the project off of what I can do, but what the Lord is doing in me through the project. Another thing I want to start doing is using scripture to tackle those defeating thoughts that still find their way, that still try to creep in, and find scripture that specifically targets that in the same way that Jesus did when He fasted for 40 days, 40 nights and contended with Satan, who was trying to give Him muddled and mixed words. So let this video be a blessing to you. And don't forget to fail, learn, repeat, and triumph. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Deuces.